feature presentation.
Welcome back to another Untitled Movie Podcast, episode 119. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck, alongside he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchin.
Matt, did anything happen the other night?
Man, what a relaxing, nice, like we just did our nice Oscar preview show. The Academy Awards, the 94th Academy Awards were last night. A very chill,
Nothing happened.
fantastic,
Nothing out of the ordinary.
fantastic show celebrating the last year in movies, from everything from, CODA to Zack Snyder's Justice League.
And Army of the Dead. Don't forget that one. The Zack Snyder fanboys were out in full force last night.
The show went off without a hitch. Wow, what just a wonderful show from top to bottom.
I see what you did with the hitch.
No problems at all. Nothing went wrong.
The pursuit of happiness was found by the end of the ceremony.
All kidding aside, I had an out-of-body experience last night, and it was wild. Like everyone, obviously, we're recording this Monday afternoon after the 94th Academy Awards. I had a full work day already. The hot takes are already spewing on Twitter and other websites. We're probably late to the game already. Whatever, needs to be said has probably been said. I've heard that, they've already made up. But who the fuck knows? But
confirmed by P. Diddy himself.
Yeah. What a wild, and everyone knows what we're talking about. If you're listening to this, you know exactly what we're talking about.
We're talking about the slap specifically.
Yeah. Will Smith. I hate this. This is the thing too. I went on Kind of Funny today. I talked about the Oscars. Of course you got to start with this, but it's just kind of a bummer that it's taking the spotlight away from the movies. And we will get to all the movies, but I think, what's going to control the discourse and the conversation over the next probably a week. I'll give it a week and then maybe a couple days, hopefully, and then it kind of will die off.
And it will also define the 94th
totally,
Academy
which
Awards.
Sucks for things like CODA and Troy Kotzer and Ariana DeBose and Will Smith winning his first Oscar.
Yeah,
I mean, he did it to
Questlove
himself,
winning for Summer of Soul right after that happened.
Riz Ahmed, who got relegated to
the pre-show edited version.
I'm opening a Coke Zero because this is gonna be a
long one.
It just what a wild. I just couldn't believe what I was watching last night. And obviously the La La Land Moonlight fiasco, which I think was the other most infamous kind of thing that happened in at least the last couple years. You brought up the Rob Lowe 1989 Cinderella or Snow White opening,
which is terrible. And then David the streaker, and then David Niven kind of coming up with the on the moment kind of joke to retort it. And also with Marlon Brando refusing his Oscar for The Godfather, which was 50 years ago. So there's always been moments within the Academy history that has been when it started to get televised that have been kind of defining moments. And for the most part, everything that's happened, with the exception of John Wayne wanting to attack one of the presenters who was presenting on behalf of Marlon Brando for The Godfather, there has been no violence committed or assaults or things like that on stage or during the program. And so,
which I think is why this seems like the wildest one of them all.
Yes, this makes the whole situation a little bit different compared to, somebody reading the wrong name for a film to win Best Picture. Yeah. And like, again, it's I guess it's not, it is trivial in some ways when you compare the two, because one is just a mix up and then the other is someone actually physically
I just mean a moment,
hurt. Yeah.
A moment.
Yes.
And so that's what made the whole thing. Cause I just think when, we did our predictions on Friday.
Did not predict this.
That episode. Yeah, that's what I mean. Could have never, no one if anyone went to you on Friday, go, what would be interesting if like a nominee, one of the biggest like movie stars on the planet,
one of the most
likable
likable
of all time, likable, got up and smacked one of the biggest comedians in the world, and just smacked them in the middle of the show while after a joke, and then went back to his seat and proceeded to yell at him. Like, I would have been like, no, there's no way that would ever happen. And so watching it live, again, I compare the moments just because they're
I mean, Melissa
memorable to
Leo
me.
dropping the F-bomb on
Um,
stage is probably the closest thing when she won the Oscar for The Fighter for
yeah,
supporting actress.
but even then, like,
But it's
that
not hurting
happens. But
anybody.
I was just flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Like, the show up to that point was,
Embarrassing.
yeah, not great. And I hate being so negative. Like, I was being that negative asshole, being like, "Oh, the nominees are mid, they're just okay," or kind of things like that. And I really like, starting off a week with just like, complaining about the show, complaining about the nominees, whatever. I think all the movies are good, just not great, for the most part. And then the show itself, you know, Will Smith slapping Chris Rock aside, and we'll get into it more, was just kind of a clusterfuck. Like, it was just this thing where they're like, we need to shorten the broadcast. We need to make it more appealing to a younger audience or a more mainstream audience. So we're going to cut 8 awards. We're going to just show them during the show, but they're going to be kind of sped up. And it's just, and then we're going to do this fan vote for the Oscar cheer moments and the fan favorite films of the year. And then it just made for this weird, and then have 3 hosts, which, to be fair, I thought all 3 of them did a totally fine job. Like, I don't think that they were bad or necessarily good. I think there were some pros and cons to the whole thing. Certain bits didn't work, certain things did.
Yeah.
Which is kind of an Oscar host in a nutshell, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think all 3 of them did a pretty fine job. Like, I have no complaints there. It's just the show, how it was put together. It ran longer than last year. It was like 3 hours and 45 minutes. And you also butchered up all these awards to have weird segments like an Academy Museum commercial in halfway through the thing for like a good 5-10 minutes
Or
or whatever.
performing a
Or it feels like
remix of We Don't
of
Talk About Bruno, which wasn't
yeah,
even nominated for Best Song.
wasn't nominated, and you replaced 90% of the song with a new verse by Megan Thee Stallion, which
Yeah.
all the children love. And I know Bruno has transcended being a children's song and a children's movie. And again, another thing, animation, not just for children. Encanto's a great movie for everyone. But the kids who listen to that song on repeat is what I'm talking about. Reba McEntire performing, which I get, the song is nominated. I made a joke about that. So of course they're going to ask her to perform just like they would do any of the nominees. It's just like, it was just such a weird show. Like, the Flash entering the Speed Force being the #1 Oscar cheer moment, Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead being the #1 fan favorite film. Like, it was such a up and down kind of like thing of like, then Ariana DeBose's speech was lovely. When she won, she was the first person to accept an award on the live show. Troy Kotzer's speech was phenomenal. I absolutely thought it was amazing. It's why I tweeted, it's why I love the Oscars. Like, I got emotional listening to it. It was such a lovely moment and a lovely speech.
And Yoon
Questlove's
Jung
speech is,
Joon presenting him the
yeah,
award as well was really beautiful.
it was beautiful. And her like staying up there with him and making sure she could hold on to his award so he could sign properly was just such a wonderful, subtle thing that like, it was fantastic. And like, so it had those moments, and then it just, from the slap onward, um, it just took the wind out of everyone's sails. No one knew what to do. I think as an audience, all everyone could think about was this. I feel like anyone who wasn't watching the Oscars then turned on the Oscars because everyone also thought Will Smith was going to win Best Actor, which he did. And I think everyone was waiting for that moment. So to break it down, like, we'll get into all of the winners and things like that, but I feel like, it's what everyone is talking about. We have to talk about it. Is like, Chris Rock came up.
And we're not talking about Bruno.
No. He came up, he made a joke in very poor taste, which I understand why Will Smith would be upset at the joke. I understand that. But then Will Smith gets up and he almost seemed like he laughed at first, then got up, and it seemed like a bit, right? Like, it seemed like something that was set up, like, oh, Will Smith is going to get up. He's fake hit Chris Rock goes back down to his seat, and there's like, oh my God, he made fun of him, and Will Smith smacked him. The likable Hollywood man Will Smith got up, and that's a bit. So it seemed like a bit, and I was like, damn, okay, that was interesting. Then he gets back down in the seat, and watching in Canada, and I think in the US it did this as well. The audio just cuts out, and then you're like, huh, what is happening right now? And then it cuts to Will Smith, and the camera's on him, and he's yelling, get my wife's name out of your fucking mouth. And then like if you can sort of read lips, which he was very pronounced, it was pretty easy to see what he was saying. I'm like, this doesn't seem like a bit. Like that doesn't seem like something the Oscars would write into the show. A little too edgy, a little too real. And I'm like, no offense to Chris Rock, I don't think he could have sold that as like the way that I saw the emotion on his face and on Will Smith's face. I could believe Will Smith selling it. And I love Chris Rock, but as an actor, I'm like, that looked, it's too good
Well,
to be
even
a
afterwards, right? Because
yeah,
he was on track, but he was
visibly
kind
shaken.
he was off, like the way that he says, okay, now we're presenting the documentary, and instead of saying the Oscar for
Well,
a
dude, you'd be
documentary.
so shooken, right?
Yeah.
Like you didn't like at that point you have a guy who you probably think you're sort of friendly with. Like I know they've done stuff together and and stuff like that. And you think he's coming up to be like, how dare you? And then he literally smacks you.
And you hear it because of the mic that Chris Rock is wearing. Like
and,
you hear
and you
the
could tell
smack.
like Chris Rock turns away. So like you don't know like how much it connected, but it connected, right?
Yeah.
And then so you could see he's shaken. And then I think maybe even at that point, Chris Rock thought it was a joke still. Like still thought Will probably went a little bit too far and was joking hit him, but hit him pretty hard. But then when Will gets down and yells those words I said twice at the loudest I've ever heard anyone yell, you could see it on Chris Rock's face of like, oh, like, no, he's actually pissed. And it just, you could tell he was visibly shaken afterwards. And it was just one of the wildest, like I had my parents texting me being like, was that staged? And I was like, there's no way it's staged. There's no benefit to anyone of why that would be staged. Like for ratings, for publicity, like it's not good for anyone involved.
No.
So there's no reason why anyone would stage it. So I knew it was real right away. And then when you start to break it down, like, yeah, Chris Rock shouldn't be, I don't get the reasoning. It seemed like it was off the cuff from things that I've read, but there's no confirmation like it was written in the script or if he just said it when he was up there. But making a joke about a woman's appearance is, I just think, lazy and not needed. And then on top of that, someone who struggles with a health issue that like
alopecia specifically.
Yeah, alopecia that makes her, that's why she shaves her head. Like on top of that, it's just something that doesn't need to be said. That being said, Will Smith getting up and smacking a dude in front of thousands of people at the fucking Oscars, in front of millions of people on television, and then screening that. Obviously it's live to millions of people around the world, is just one of the wildest decisions and things that has ever happened in Hollywood, at least from a awards thing. Again, there's lots of conversation. Yes, there's a lot of shitty people in Hollywood. There's a lot wilder things. If you talk about like what actually happened, a dude slapped a dude, not that okay, it's whatever. I'm not trying to downplay violence, but he smacked him and like it shouldn't be done. No one should ever resort to that. But it's just where it happened and the decision to do it in that moment. And I'm not saying it would have been fine at the Vanity Fair after party or during rehearsals or anything like that.
Or any time. Violence.
Or any time, really.
You're taught when you're a child that you're supposed to use your words and not your fists. And
yeah,
someone like Will Smith, someone like Chris Rock, they're adults. You act like adults, behave like adults. You are basically saying that it is okay to, hurt somebody and to take your disagreements and your anger out on someone physically, and that is the wrong
and on that
message.
Stage
and
too.
Yeah, and I think as much as Will Smith is to blame, I also think the Academy is to blame here because they didn't know how to handle the situation.
Yeah.
And instead of either asking Will Smith to leave or ending the broadcast or finding out some middle ground here, they just kept the show going as business as usual and kind of tried to pretend like it didn't happen.
But that's anytime something like this happens, that's
Oh,
always what
totally.
happens. Owen Hart dies in the middle of the ring 20 some years ago. And Vince McMahon and everyone at WWE just goes, let's continue the pay per view. Like, I think in those moments, Eric, it's like they're 3/4 of the way through the show. And I think everyone is so caught off guard by it, you have no idea how to proceed. Because if it's anyone else, if it's a random person, if it's costume designer on Cruella goes up and smacks
Jenny
Chris
Beavan,
Rock.
you're talking about specifically, who's the
Yeah,
costume designer, yeah.
and I'm not saying Jenny would ever do this because she wouldn't, but
No.
I'm saying if she walks up and smacks Chris Rock, she's getting kicked out. It's because it's Will Smith. And like, I think everyone was, again, just like we were at home, so flabbergasted at like, and didn't know how to process any of it. And I'm not saying it's like, again, it's just a wild thing. I think there's wrongs on both Chris Rock's side and Will Smith's, but violence, I agree with you, Eric, is never something you should just, especially on that stage, but ever
And the Academy,
just
I think the
resort to.
Academy should share that blame with both men as well, because they
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to diffuse the situation. They didn't do anything after that moment. And it could have been something that it's like, okay, we need to end this broadcast, or we
Yeah,
need to ask Will
there's
Smith
no
to
way they're
leave.
ending it.
No, I know. But for a organization that condones violence and even
Sure.
released a statement the next day, they did nothing. And I know you mentioned it already, that most telecasts and most you know, companies and televised events, they don't know how to handle it. But it was just such an awkward juxtaposition from a night
Mm-hmm.
that was already running off
Off the
the
rails. Yeah.
track to becoming something that was truly almost unbearable and uncomfortable to watch through the night. Because I went back and watched that video 5 times. I was
No, I've
so,
seen the uncensored clips and things
yeah,
like
yeah.
that
and
too. Yeah.
and the other person I think actually who should be offended by Chris Rock's monologue there, when before he was presenting best documentary feature, is Penelope Cruz, because in that
Yeah.
series of jokes, Chris Rock refers to Penelope Cruz as Javier Bardem's wife
Mm-hmm.
twice and
Mm-hmm.
doesn't say Penelope Cruz. Penelope Cruz is a major movie star. She's not
Mm-hmm.
Javier Bardem's wife. And that led into the Will Smith section, because he was joking that if Javier Bardem, wins and Javier Bardem's wife
Yeah.
loses, then, he loses. And so that kind of led into the Will Smith stuff. And then also a lot of people, in the last 24 hours or so have been posting the Chris Rock monologue when he hosted the 2015 to 2016 Oscar season, the Oscar So White season, where he also made fun of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, not for any physical appearance or anything
Yeah.
like that, but to do with Jada boycotting the Oscars because Will Smith wasn't nominated for Concussion. That joke actually was quite funny, because it's like Jada Pinkett Smith, it's like, what I mean, even though, yeah, she's in a lot of really wonderful movies. I really love Set It Off and Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. I think she's great in both of those. I really liked her in Michael Mann's Collateral and Ali.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, what, you're not Will Smith, you're not, a name person that's going to make a dent in sort of changing the Oscars that way, unfortunately. And that year was problematic in itself.
Sure.
But I almost feel like maybe that's where some of, again, the tension maybe came from as well, where like maybe that's where
Yeah.
some of that discrepancy began to kind of take shape.
For it to become like a real thing that, hey, don't do that kind
Yeah,
of
and
thing.
then going into what Rock said, yeah, it's tasteless, especially when Chris Rock is a producer on a movie called Good Hair, which is
Yeah.
about African American women and their hair, and sort of
Mm-hmm.
the sensitive subject matter that goes into that, and the thoughtfulness that goes into it. And he kind of handled that movie and that subject matter with a lot of dignity and empathy and respect. And then for him to kind of, do this cheap shot, which wasn't funny, but at the same time I mean, he was in the right to say it because it's the freedom of speech, and like there are comedians that say way worse. And I think what should have happened is that Will Smith should have either taken him aside after the bit to talk to him, or had Will Smith's people write up something to the Academy and Chris Rock's people or something, or
And
leave.
release something that says, hey, I
Yeah,
did not appreciate that. Leaving would have been
let
one
Rock
thing.
shoot
I
himself
think,
in the foot instead of basically turning yourself into the reason for why the rest of the night became
yeah,
such
that no one will remember the rest of the night
an
or who
awkward
won. And
experience. And
like, yeah,
especially for Questlove again, who made
yeah,
this amazing movie Summer of Soul, which nobody had seen this footage for decades, and he
yeah.
makes this
Had to go up right after.
yeah,
It
and
was
he
just
gave
like,
a beautiful,
oh, he did.
wonderful,
Yeah. Everyone should go look that up if you missed it in the moment. Like, cause I definitely
vulnerable
did.
speech. And then the other
And
thing that bothered me so much about the Will Smith acceptance speech is how he shielded himself with the women who were a part of King Richard and
yeah.
used them as a shield to protect his own image. And it was just like, what are you doing? And
Yeah, I agree. And I'm with you where there were so many other ways you could have handled that. And
yeah,
like, I would have even
even
imagine.
apologize to Chris Rock. Be the bigger
I
man.
understand. I agree with that, but I understand not doing that, and or in the moment not doing it if you're really upset at someone. And I get that part of it. There was just a million different ways you could have handled it, and I feel like, especially being at the Oscars, it's just like there's no excuse for it.
No.
And
And then there's
you
also
know,
there's a conversation that I think is important to bring up, even though we can't answer it specifically, is that there's the cultural differences. Is it because
sure,
Chris Rock is a black man and Will Smith is a black man, and Will Smith going up
yeah,
on stage and smacking him because maybe he feels that that's okay to do? Like, what happens if it was one of the three hosts that said that? What would have happened
yeah,
then? Or if it was another comedian that wasn't black, that might have been Asian or
sure, sure.
Latin or white?
You can't shoulda, coulda, woulda kind of
No.
this stuff. You only have to kind of look at what happened, and I mean, and to your point, it's just like I would have, if we would have heard about this happening at the rehearsals or an after party or something like that, it would have just been like a TMZ thing. Like there was an altercation between Chris Rock and Will Smith, and it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. It would have been news,
It
but
still would have
it
been a
would.
problem if he did. Again, I think like ultimately what it comes down to is that when you physically assault somebody, like when you like actually hit somebody,
Sure, sure.
there's no excuse for that.
I
There
I agree
truly
with
is
it. I
no
agree
excuse
with
for
that, dude.
that.
But I'm just saying, if he would have slapped him or hit him like he did at one of these things, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. There's videos of Will Smith doing that to someone who was being weird to him on a red carpet or stuff before, and there's no excuse for that either. But what I'm saying, I don't agree that you should ever hit someone in those
Yes.
situations. I was I've gotten into altercations. I've hit my best friend before, but I was a teenager. As like an adult, you kind of grow out of those things, and you should never, even as a teenager, there's really no excuse, but this shit happens. But like, if we would have heard about this at an after party or what I said at the pre-show or something like that, or rehearsals, it would have been a TMZ article. We would have been like, damn, Will Smith was really pissed. But then we would have all moved on. I think because it happened live on the show, and the balls to do that or think that that was okay to do, like in front of all these people, and just it's embarrassing for everyone and yourself. Like it's just,
Well, and
again,
Will Smith's family. I mean, like that's the
yeah,
other thing is was what Will Smith doing on behalf of Jada Pinkett Smith? Was it something that like she felt like, oh, okay, that was the right thing to do, or was that
mhm.
like it felt like he was
You're
talking
seeing a
for
lot on
her?
both sides. Yeah, I agree with
And
that. I've
like,
talked to Nevis, and Nevis said that she's like, I'd be embarrassed
yeah,
if you did that. Like I can
because I
handle
can
it
fight my own
myself, or like,
battles, right?
yeah, like it is this controlling kind of weird thing. And like, again, all of these things can be right. You shouldn't hit people like
No,
ever.
I mean that
Period.
is truly the
You
bottom
shouldn't
line.
you shouldn't
Violence
make
of
fun
any
of,
kind is
yes,
unacceptable.
and you should not make jokes about people's appearance, especially if they have a condition. Not even especially, just at all. Just don't do it.
Right,
It's just lazy. Like there's so many other better, more clever, interesting jokes you can do. You can roast people without roasting their looks. Like
right.
it's just, especially when someone is dealing with something like that. All of these things can be true. Like I think that there was just wrongs all the way, and it was a perfect storm of like just the joke wasn't good. The reaction was even worse. And like, it was just this clusterfuck. And then his speech trying to kind of give himself a pass kind of thing and apologizing to the people there and the academy and stuff. But like, I don't know. It
It
just,
cheapens the moment though as well for Venus and Serena Williams,
I
and
agree.
for
For
all the cast and
himself.
crew. Oh yeah, totally. Like like he will never be able to completely recover from this image wise. Like even though like
I don't know.
I well no, no what I mean is like he'll be able to still work. He'll still be a movie star.
But
Like
this will be in history as something
exactly the
everyone
same way
brings up.
that Russell Crowe throwing a phone
Yeah,
at
sure. Yeah.
somebody is this, I still like Russell Crowe. I still think I will like Will Smith, but
Same.
what he has done, I now am thinking to myself, oh well, I always thought you were like I always put him and Tom Hanks on this pedestal of saying like these are two
Mhm.
guys that really are people that you should look up to. And
I
after
get the
this, like, and again, he's human. I understand that too.
That's what I mean. Like, he's human, defending family. I get all that. Again, I'm not saying what he did was right. Like, I get those moments of like it's so built up, and you feel like you react and you don't even think about it. And but at the Oscars and that televised and all that kind of stuff is just absolutely wild. Like, I just and I think like I'm still happy he got his due and stuff like that. It's just weird. It's just like it should have been just this great moment for him.
And
And I
it's
have
tainted
always really
now.
liked him, and it is tainted. And like, I think, ultimately, I think if they're cool with it, I don't think we should forget about it, because I don't think it is okay to, if you just kind of give him a full pass and just say, let's just water under the bridge. They're cool with one another. Not a big deal. It's like, no, that's not necessarily how this should go. I'm not, and I'm also saying you should not take his Oscar away,
No.
because people have been saying that, and that is ridiculous. Like, if you have
If Woody
all of
Allen,
these,
Roman
and
Polanski, Mel
yeah, Harvey
Gibson,
Weinstein, like,
Casey Affleck,
yeah, all have their Oscars still, and they never kind of said, no, those are void now. Then no, he deserves it. He got the votes. He won. Um, that's ridiculous. But they need to be like, hey, they need to do something a little bit more. I'm just curious of what the
well,
fuck that is going to
again,
be
that goes
like.
back to the Academy itself. Like it's at this point where it's so pressured by ABC in
Ratings
terms of the
and
ratings, but also the length of the show and trying to gain new members, both young and old, because the people that watch the show are always going to watch the show. So those
yeah,
viewers are always going to be constant. But in order to gain new members and to stay relevant, and there's this pressure to like, okay, well, let's try cutting out, 7 or 8 of the technical below the line nominations, and then you miss out on a wonderful speech by Riz Ahmed for winning best live action short. And then like you look at
first openly Muslim man to
yeah,
win, I
and and
believe.
and and then you look at like something. I mean, I know Hans Zimmer wasn't there, but Hans Zimmer hadn't won an Oscar since The Lion King, and I mean, Hans Zimmer is like one of the big names when it comes to composers, and it's just weird. Or when editing is announced, and editing is usually kind of a tell of how the night is going to go, like for the
Mhm.
Best Picture prize, and again, all
Even
these.
Dune winning so many awards that were all like your most popular movie, probably
And the
from
Jean-Marc
a
Vallée
wide.
shout out to from the
Yeah.
one guy as well, I thought was like, again, like that's a moment where it's like you want to see that during the main telecast. And there was a
Mhm.
year where like the theme of the Oscars was looking at how a movie is made from beginning to
Yeah.
end. It starts at the script and it ends in, picture when the movie is made. And so you're basically going back on that and cutting out the things that make a movie a movie. You can't have a movie without sound. You can't have a movie without editing, like, and it's almost like, okay, well, if they cut out those this year, like what else would they be willing to cut out? Like
Yeah. And it
cinematography, or something like
yeah.
that.
And it was interesting. So we'll move on from the the Will Smith and Chris
I
Rock
want to
thing. Like
talk about the
like
fan favorite and the
yeah.
five
And
cheer moments
I
because
agree, but let me talk about what you were saying with the award. Let's start with the awards being cut out,
yeah,
because so we don't move on from that. I'm taking time codes, so I just know when people will want to hear about things. Um, So you were talking about the awards being cut out, and it was interesting to see how they incorporated them in the show. And it was a little strange because they still had people come out on stage, and whether that was recorded early or that was live, I think it was
Yeah, so
live. Some of
Jason
them,
Momoa and
and like,
Josh Brolin hosted the Tech Awards
okay,
section before, like that was
yeah,
during the red carpet, and
yeah,
people like Jessica Chastain said like, oh, I'll do the red carpet early because I want to see if
see,
The
Tammy
Eyes of
Faye
Tammy Faye
wins, yeah.
wins for best hair and makeup,
Um,
and that's fair because like even people like Guillermo del Toro were in there early because a lot of
mhm.
Nightmare Alley's nominations were
Were
Tech
technical.
Awards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dune as well. And like, so it was interesting to see how they were put into the broadcast. So basically, they still read out all the nominees and all that part, but it was just kind of sped up, right? Where some were introduced by Momoa and Brolin, some were just done by the announcer of the Oscars, and then like they showed like an edited down or just like a piece of their speech instead of the whole thing. And it was just weirdly edited in, and you could tell with a lot of it, like the fake laughter that they were cutting to with the celebrities that I guarantee were not in the audience when they were giving their speeches, was just the most strange kind of off-putting thing that maybe not everyone notices, but like I certainly did, where I'm like, there's no way Zendaya laughed that hard at that joke. No offense to that guy, but she was definitely not in the theater at that moment. It
Yeah.
just looked like a laugh track kind of thing. And then you're putting shots that were from the opening monologue or the first half of the show, and you're inserting that into their speeches. And then someone even said that like one of the speeches, they cut out the moment when the person said like how important the below the line jobs on a movie were, and they cut that line out
Of
from
course.
the like, and it's just, and it's so, it's such, they made fools of themselves really, because like they did this to make the show shorter, and like they caught so much shit for it, and they went longer than last year, so they went 45 minutes over.
And
And
part of
it's
it is
just,
because of the inserts.
yeah,
If
it's
they had
just
just let them play out normally, like the rest of the show, it would have probably been around the same time or maybe
and
less.
cut out, like I don't know how many people you're bringing in to hear. Again, I said they did a good job, but Amy Schumer and Regina Hall and Wanda
Wanda
Sykes,
Sykes,
like
yeah.
I don't know how much they're bringing in to the like for ratings. Like I don't get that. So focus on the people who do really care and matter about this. And I'm not saying you shouldn't try to innovate or figure out ways to bring more people in to watch your broadcast. Like I'm surprised, like they, again, I joked about this, but like looking at something, maybe don't go as extreme as the game awards or the video game awards, that like they make it an event in the way, like video game marketing is always interesting because each trailer is like a big huge fucking deal, right? Like it's at a big event or it's a world premiere at the or game awards or E3 or something like that, where I'm shocked that these studios, if they don't work with the academy to be like, hey, can we try to organize this so, you know, it's in March, why don't we save a lot of these big huge movie trailers or something for the broadcast and have those incorporated into it or something like that. And maybe that's still going to piss off like the more traditional like cinephiles and things like that, because it's going to be all Marvel movies and action movies. But even if it was like, you know, Apple TV premiering the Killers of the Flower Moon trailer or anything, like it can be all these giant streamers and studios. Like if you incorporate that shit and make it an event that is celebrating movies but also celebrating the future of movies and what's coming the next, what you might be excited for next Oscars, or will win a bunch of technical awards or might
That
win a
no one will
fan
see.
favorite. That's what I mean. Or a fan favorite moment is just, which we'll get into, good segue, but it's just like there are ways to improve the show and kind of meet in the middle. I just don't, it's just, it's amazing what they decided to do to try to improve the show is just, and then so that's a perfect segue, and unless you had anything
Yeah,
to
I
add
do
on to
want to say
that.
they did try that a little bit in
Yeah,
2008 when they had a sizzle reel at the end of the ceremony and they had clips from movies that were coming out in
sure,
2009
but a
because that was
sizzle
the
reel's
first.
not,
No, I know that, but that was the first time I remember seeing footage for Inglorious Bastards. Was
sure,
that sizzle reel? But like that was them doing like the closest thing to what you're kind of describing, but I don't disagree. I mean, the closest thing they did to this, which kind of cheapened Troy Kotzer's speech a little bit, is like right after that you
The
have a
Lightyear
segue
thing.
to Chris Evans
Which was
congratulating Troy
bad, but
Kotzer and then saying, "Oh, here's some new footage for, you know, Lightyear coming up." And it just, again, it almost felt like a scene out of Don't Look Up instead of the Oscars.
I agree. So maybe that's not the right way to do it. Maybe it should be from someone at the awards and you make it. So maybe that's icky. I don't know. People probably won't agree with me on that, but I'm just trying to say, like,
Well, how do you
uh,
make it about the films itself? Like that's the
yeah,
thing where it's like, you know, the joke has always been with like MTV isn't about music videos and anymore. You know, the focus on films with the Academy isn't on the movies nominated. Like
that's true.
you
Yeah.
need to be unafraid to go niche and specific on the films and not worry about what other people think or what other people are doing. And I know that they're stressed with, you know, having ABC and, you know, the ratings and things like that on their back, but you just need to focus on what makes the Academy Awards the Academy Awards. And what is the Academy Awards? The celebration of film. This did not feel like the celebration of film. This felt like the Academy
No.
Awards was trying to be a combination of the People's Choice Awards and the
Yeah.
MTV Movie Awards, from the opening, you know, sequence introducing all the presenters and that kind of
Oh
weird sort
God,
of
it
like,
was awful. I'm like, why do you have to have every person's
yeah,
name?
and like even like the headshot of John Travolta specifically was wild, because like a
the
lot of it
opening
was
Beyonce performance, which was good. It's
that
just
was
like,
fine. That was, I think that
yeah,
was okay. I don't think the song is great, but I like the idea of doing that in
totally.
terms of like a kind of Grammy-esque. But again, it's trying to be the Grammys there for a second or
But
something like that.
yeah.
And then
The Disney insertion and everything was kind of not great either.
yeah,
Like
and
the
especially with
BTS moment and the
yeah,
Lightyear thing
and
and
Encanto
the
with we
Encanto
don't
with
talk about
Bruno.
Bruno.
Yeah.
And again, I like that song. It should have been nominated, but it wasn't. And for you to add that in there is there's that playing of favoritism,
Favoritism.
you
Like I
know?
know it's your network, but you know, you kind of have to, I get that. And then that's why I go with then use your commercial break time. Maybe you don't have Chris Evans introing the new Lightyear trailer. Maybe you
Congratulations, Troy
like,
Kotzer.
but
Here's
we've
a
seen
scene
at
from
other, like
Lightyear.
at the Super Bowl, you don't have, whoever Drew Brees introducing like the new thing. It's just like you could have just had the Multiverse of Madness trailer or, which happened at the Super Bowl just happened during the commercial. So maybe it's not even what I'm talking about, but then you make it this event like the Super Bowl where these things are going to drop. Maybe it's not even part of the broadcast. We need to have commercials. So advertise movies. Like
Yeah.
I just don't get that. Maybe don't make it a part of the thing. And then to your point, it has to be a celebration of the movies that are nominated and the movies that came out that year. So it's just like, I don't know, maybe there needs to be a revamp of the entire awards and like the breakdown of everything, and whether it's like the categories adding some. I know they've talked about this and people get up in arms. I think it's just finding a way to add in the right awards that will feature other movies and more interesting people to go up and show their speeches and focus on that stuff, because like this isn't the Grammys, it's not the MTV Movie Awards, like it's not any of this shit where
It cheapens it.
you
It
need.
makes it more tacky. Like it's
I honestly like the ones I've liked are the ones that were very straightforward. Yeah, it can be very dry or boring to people, but it's a fucking award show. Focus on the awards. And I always understand um performing the best song nominees. Like I think that totally makes sense. But yeah, then the Bruno thing was just egregious and strange. So I don't know how you fix it. Like I don't know if there is a way to fix it. Like we've always said, yeah, you should have best casting, you should have best stunt
stunts.
work.
I think you
I
should
think of
bring back the two categories for sound, because that also feels like a smack in the face to the people that do the mixing and
yeah,
editing. And it's just
yeah,
like,
you all just have to share it now.
yeah.
I mean, I'm more okay with that. I understand what you're saying, and I'm sure people in the sound department would be on what you're saying. I understand that, to simplify it a little bit.
Well, no, part of the reason why that was done was also to basically
Speed things up or
speak.
whatever.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
I
the
understand.
reason why. It wasn't
I
necessarily because I mean, yeah, people don't can't tell the difference,
tell the
but people
difference.
can't
Yeah,
tell the difference between, what is film and what is
sure,
digital. Like that's a big
sure.
reason why Mank won, because a lot of people thought Mank was shot on film.
I know. I get all that, but then like with the So leading into, I think this can be a conversation about both things. They were going to do a most popular film Oscar that got blown up in their face. Because everyone's like, how do you qualify for that? Like, you haven't said like what that like. Do you need to make a certain amount of money? Do you need to like what qualifies for that award? Does it the budget need to be over a certain amount of money? Like, is that how you break things up? Like,
It's like the
and
reverse
that
Indie Spirit Awards
that's
or
what I mean.
something.
So like you almost need like best picture if it was under 100 million, or best picture if it was over 100 million. And like that just sounds awkward and strange, but um I don't know what you do. And then this year they go, okay, you know what we'll do? We'll let the fans vote on Twitter, and we'll do the top 5 Oscar cheer moments and the top 5 fan favorite films. And that's kind of what the middle ground was of not doing the most popular movie Oscar, whatever the hell it was called. And this isn't a official award, it's just a list
Yeah.
that they did on the broadcast and made people watch clips from these movies.
And because the populist awards would also, like, again, cater, I think, mostly to Disney movies or Disney related franchises, where
if
it's
that
like
award was real, you mean?
yeah, like you'd probably have
You'd
like
have
at least
Marvel
3
and
or 4
yeah,
Marvel movies, and then you'd have probably like a
couple
Pixar
of
film.
animated
Yeah.
movies, and then like you'd get a couple, other ones from Warner Brothers or Paramount or whatever that would kind of round things out.
And then
So
the
I don't know.
segregation of that as well, I think, is weird. Just because, like, again, it's almost saying that, like, populist movies shouldn't be allowed to compete for the big
For best
prize
picture,
either. In the
yeah.
same way that even though we do have categories for animated film and documentary and celebrating those specific fields,
Do you
it's
do sci-fi? Do you break it up to like what the Critics' Choice or the other awards do? Have you introduced more categories that way, of like that way you can feature those films? I don't know.
yeah, I think when it comes down to it, I think there are 2 categories at least that should be introduced, which are casting and stunts. But in terms of like,
wild that they're not already there.
I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I know SAG introduced the stunt category not too long ago, and there are guild awards for casting and things like
Totally,
that.
yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, like, how does the Academy get back to the standard, the gold standard of what they're known for, and also trying to stay relevant? Because clearly, in the last, excluding the pandemic, I think, like, it's understandable that, like, the Steven Soderbergh direct or produced,
Was weird or
ceremony
whatever,
was
yeah.
weird, but it was going to be weird no matter what.
But
And
the choice of the switching up the last kind of couple nominations was also bizarre last year. I remember
yeah,
being
I saw
flabbergasted by
somebody
that.
saying, like, it should have been like best actor should have been presented
Yeah.
last, so they could get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
But like, I think, like, the 2019 show, in comparison to the last couple of years, was really good. Like, it's one of those things where it's like you had Bong Joon-ho not only accept the Oscar for director, but he talked about, like, Martin Scorsese being a huge influence. And even though they didn't televise it, there were clips online from the DGA Awards this year, which felt more like what the Oscars should be, where you had Denis Villeneuve accepting, one of his awards for Dune, and talking about how, he wrote Spielberg's name on his Montreal Canadiens jersey. And, like, that was, like, why he wanted to become a filmmaker. And those
Mhm.
moments are many throughout that night, and following some of that stuff. And then you look at this, and again, like, it's trying to have its cake and eat it too, and catering to everybody, and wanting to get as much of a mass audience as possible. And it's the same way of, like, I talk about this before as a metaphor, where it's like you go to a restaurant, you go and look at the menu, and you open it up, and it has like 40 pages, and there's nothing.
Cheesecake Factory, yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing that defines it for what it is. It's like there's
Mhm.
no specialties, there's nothing. It's like, so what makes this place special? What makes this place
The
worth?
portions are gigantic and we have everything.
Exactly. The Academy should be about films first and foremost, and through that find a way to make it accessible.
Make it
But
a 2-night event like WrestleMania.
dude, yeah,
Saturday and Sunday.
like, I mean, there's got to be a better, there has to be a way. And I think the people that are in charge right now aren't the ones that
Yeah.
should be in charge. I think maybe there should be
Didn't they just get a new Academy president
I think in
recently?
the last 2 or 3 years they changed some of the board, or like some of the, like, the board specifically, but whoever is, like, the head of this, I think maybe should step down
Yeah.
and somebody else should come in and maybe try to kind of rework this or something, because yeah, it's not working. I'm sure whenever their contract with ABC expires, maybe streaming is the right way to go and do something with
Because
the
it can go on
streamer,
forever.
which would be ironic if it ended up on Netflix, because like again, like that
There's
would,
something we haven't talked. That'll be the first thing when we get into the actual awards.
yeah, because I mean, I find that that's probably one of the most funniest things of the whole night. Like that is truly the most comedic moment. With Netflix being this streamer that has been so desperate to get the approval of the Academy to, legitimize what they're doing is not just film on TV or
TV
streaming.
movies, yeah.
Yeah, and the the first Oscar for Best Picture for a streamer is Apple, and they didn't even really try.
Yeah, that's a good segue because let's get into the actual awards. We spent 45 minutes just talking about the show and the slap, which it will probably forever be known as. But yeah, let's start it off at the top. Yeah, it is so funny that Netflix has tried so hard this year for Power of the Dog. They put so much behind it. They put every chip that they had behind Power of the Dog, and they still came up short. And now to another streamer, Apple TV Plus, like you mentioned, for CODA, with what seems like they just started campaigning like a month ago.
Yeah.
I feel like they were like, bought it at Sundance for a buttload of money because they're Apple and they have $1 zillion because they're like, we make movies now, everyone. And you're like, what's that streaming service? Oh, they have the morning show. Oh, everyone loves Ted Lasso. People know who we are now. Let's start buying movies. And then like you pick it up at Sundance, you release it a year later, right? No, or
No,
just
it
a
was
couple
the
months
summer.
later.
It was
Yeah,
the
it was the
summer.
summer. Yeah, yeah.
And it
And
had
then,
no marketing
no,
whatsoever.
it
Like we
just
talked
dropped.
about that when it was coming
I
out.
had to
we were
tell my
like,
parents to watch it, and they're like,
yeah.
"What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, go to Apple TV, find CODA, and watch it." And had nothing behind it. I think it played in a few theaters and stuff too. And then I feel like no one talked about it really until like it started to pick up steam, I think a month or two ago or a month and a
Well,
half
during
ago.
during the beginning of award season, when you had
Yeah.
some of the more like, because it is still an independent movie, even though it was purchased by Apple for
It was
25
distributed
million.
by Apple,
Yeah.
but anyway.
So with that, like Troy Kotzer was obviously becoming a front runner and supporting actor. The film was very accessible. Like even if you
Mhm.
don't like the movie, I mean, obviously there's going to be discourse and backlash because
Always is,
there
dude.
always is with the Best Picture winner, even if
With
it's a great
anything,
pick.
look at the Will Smith thing, look at The World. There's always going to be 50% of people that disagree
Oh
or
no,
don't like
totally,
something.
totally, and even for the stuff that like you generally think is great, and like I can understand. We talked about this during the 118th draft or episode, where like looking at the last couple of years with Parasite and Nomadland winning, it kind of felt like, okay, these are two austere art house movies from directors that are critically acclaimed, that kind of made that crossover leap and found a way in, but they're still movies that aren't compromising their visions.
Yeah.
Where Coda is almost like
Very safe.
very safe, very likable.
Slight, maybe even, but
I
like,
wouldn't even say slight. I feel like
I don't
that
know.
cheapens it a little bit
Sure.
as well.
I love the movie, just so everyone knows. It was my favorite out of the nominees,
But
and I love the movie.
but it's a film where like it's almost like, okay, well, we've had these two kind of like heavier, headier
Sure.
movies in the last couple of years. Why don't we just
give it
and
to the nice one.
have something nice, because we've gone through so much in the last couple
And
of
I don't
years.
disagree with that.
I don't either. I mean, time will ultimately tell the tale of what, like, how we feel. Like, I think it'll be interesting 10 years from now looking
Sure.
back. It's like,
I have no
I
doubt
mean,
it'll be like The Artist, or I think it's
I
better.
think it's better than The Artist. Yeah.
But I don't. I love the movie. I bawled my eyes out when I saw it at Sundance. I think it is a lovely movie. I think it's great for the deaf community and like for Troy Kotzer. And I just
And Sean Hayter too. I mean, like,
and Sean
she
Hayter,
put
yeah,
her heart and soul into
totally.
the thing. So
And I think it's great. I do think that it is a movie that I probably won't watch again, or I'll watch it maybe in 10 years to see how I feel, or
Right.
I won't think about that much.
It's better
And
than the King's Speech.
I agree with that.
It's better than The Artist. It's better than a lot of
If
the
you're
kind of
ranking
safe
the fluffy
choices.
movies, yeah, like then the safe choices, if you're doing a ranking of the safe choices, I put it up there. And I think there's nothing wrong with that movie. I think it's okay to just be a perfectly lovely, well-made kind of movie. And I'm totally fine with it winning, especially in this crop of nominees, which I personally felt was a weaker year, even though I will argue that last year was a good year for movies. Like, I think there was a lot of good stuff. I never personally connected with a lot of the best picture nominees. And that being said, I only really dislike one of them, which was Nightmare Alley. And even
Because it
then, it's a
reminded you of
watchable.
Oshawa too
Yeah,
much.
it's a watchable movie, and I'm curious to watch the black and white version actually, because I think it would help my enjoyment, but we'll see.
Like The
Um,
Mist, right?
yeah, I love The Mist black and white. And I feel like black and white suited that movie and probably should have been how it was released. Um, I like Power of the Dog. I thought King Richard was fine. I like West Side Story. I liked Drive My Car, which I did watch, everyone, before the ceremony. I really like Belfast. I like I'm not at the best picture nominees. Who am I missing?
Licorice Pizza.
Licorice Pizza. I like. I have issues with these movies, but like Dune, okay, Dune's maybe the other one I didn't really like, but I can respect the technical aspect of Dune and why it won a bunch of those
Well, because it's
awards.
only half a film, right? So
Yeah,
like it's like
people
literally
hate
we've
us for
talked
that.
about, I know, but it's true. It's like when you if
Yeah,
you're reading the book Dune and you read only half of it and say, "Oh, I've read enough and like I
yeah.
don't need to read any
Let's
more."
rate
And
it on Goodreads. Like,
exactly, based on
I,
half a read. Like
I,
we laughed, we were talking about it before, but like Dune Part 2 should be called Dune the Other Half.
yeah. And then Don't Look Up, which I really liked when I first saw it, has kind of faded, and I've understand people's criticisms of that movie. I still like it though.
I
So if you
hated
look
it.
at this, I know you did. I know that's the one you don't like it
I'm
at all.
apparently a
But
Republican according to one comment.
yeah. But if you look at that, like I liked all of those movies. I just didn't care about a lot of them, if that makes sense. So
Well,
then that's why I
the
didn't
more
feel like I was
interesting
very
stuff
passionate.
never gets nominated for
Yeah.
Best Picture. Like it ends up
That's why
in,
the Parasite thing is so fun,
well, it's a
or
phenomenon. Or even Drive My Car. Like I know you didn't
yeah.
love Drive My Car, but
I liked it.
Drive
I
My
more
Car
appreciated it,
is
but
still, I think, like a weird like moment where it didn't have the money that Neon or Rome or Netflix had for Roma or Parasite,
sure.
respectively. Janus Films is a well-respected, well-regarded company, and it has been for decades. But that movie truly benefited from the critics. The
Totally.
critics
And
were
that's
the
how
ones that
it
kept that
carried it
movie
all the way.
alive, and somehow
Totally.
it did translate over, because
And I
sometimes the
think
critic
that
stuff
hurt
doesn't.
my viewing of it
Right.
because I got built up so much by critics groups and other things like that.
Including me. I was
And
hyping it
and
up a lot too.
and I'm not denying that it's a good movie, and I feel like it's the opposite effect of something like Don't Look Up, or even some of the things that when I did a ranking the other day. I think Drive My Car will creep up higher because I'm liking it the more I sit on it and think about it.
Yeah.
Because like I hate, even when we review movies, like I think it always benefits us when we sleep on it or when we wait a day or two. Like it's great to get that initial reaction, your gut reaction to a movie, but I find personally, like when I can sit on a movie and think about it and see how I feel days later or weeks later or something like that, like you'll see me shifting my rankings on Letterboxd for things where Don't Look Up that I originally gave a 4, or I'm not even putting in my top 25, or I'm putting it under movies I gave a 3 or even a 2 or something like that. Like it all changes with time. And I feel like Drive My Car, a movie that I struggled with the length, and it's a challenging movie to me personally, but it's a very a beautiful movie, and with great performances, and it has sat with me really, really well, and I'm very glad I watched it.
Mhm.
And I do think it will creep up my list of things that I enjoyed out of this crop of movies, because I did enjoy it. I just didn't fall in love with it, and that's just kind of sums up how I felt about a lot of the nominees. Not to be a negative, um,
Nancy.
yeah, it's just like I don't want to be that person, but I really did enjoy Coda, and it was probably my favorite thing out of the group. Even maybe it's not the I mean, obviously a lot of people agree with me because it won, but it is like just a nice movie, and I'm totally fine with that sometimes, especially when I'm not super passionate about the rest of the movies. Like, I think Jane Campion moving on to Best Director, like, I think Power of the Dog winning that
Which was
totally
the
makes
only
sense. And
award
like,
that movie won, and Netflix won in the entire night. So Power of the Dog, nominated for 12 Oscars,
oh
one
man, they
win.
put a lot of money behind that. I
But
mean,
it
they
also
got
goes to
her.
show you that they didn't put, like, they should have probably put more money in or an effort into The Lost Daughter, because The Lost Daughter
Mhm.
also got 3 nominations. And there's another film. That's a movie that probably
I
should have
love
been
that movie.
nominated
Yeah.
for Best Picture, and I feel like in 10 years we'll be talking about that movie
More than
more.
Don't Look Up or
Yeah, or
like,
even other films like The Green Knight or
yeah,
T10, or films that will be wondering,
totally.
like, why didn't this get
But
nominated? Or
that's
Red
like every
Rocket,
year
right? Or
that
Pig.
happens, right? Yeah, that happens every year where you kind of reevaluate 10 years later and you're like, "Oh man, how did we
Yeah.
kind of
I
what
mean,
did we do here?"
sometimes you do know in the moment, because, like, I think a lot of people, like, when The Social Network lost to The King's Speech, everybody was like,
I was
this
so
is not
mad.
gonna date well. And again, you look at it now, it's like, yeah, The Social Network is like one of the defining movies
Of that
of
decade.
that
It was
decade. And
mine number 1. Was it yours? No,
it
yours was
was,
Mad Max.
yeah,
Yours was
it
like in the top 5 or something, right?
top 3, I think.
Yeah.
But now, like, nobody even talks about the King's
God,
Speech.
no,
And
no one. Has anyone rewatched that movie since that year it
no, and
came
does
out?
anybody care about that film? No.
No.
And I mean, it is like the last sort of breath of
A
Harvey
perfectly
Weinstein as
fine
well.
movie again, too. I didn't hate The King's Speech
No,
when I
no,
saw it, but
but
I
it's
just
almost like that is the offense of that movie, is that it is inoffensive in so many ways, and
sure.
that it is so middle of the road and trying to kind of like just kind of, it is like the Academy Awards itself. It's trying to cater to everybody, and then it
Yeah.
also has
Which I
no.
think what people think is what CODA is, but I
Yeah,
just
but
don't
I think CODA
necessarily
is a little
agree.
bit
Yeah.
better. I don't want to say like CODA is necessarily groundbreaking either. Like, I
No,
think
it's
a movie
not,
like The
but
Tribe is more groundbreaking
sure.
than CODA in terms of what
God,
it's
what a
doing
movie
and
The Tribe
how
is.
aggressive it
Everyone go
is.
watch The Tribe. It is a
Yes.
hard movie to watch, but it is a good movie.
Yeah.
I've been watching. Isn't there a good Blu-ray release for
I
that
have
that I
it.
want to?
If you want to
Yeah,
borrow it, I
I
got it.
I haven't watched that since TIFF, but what a
That is truly
fantastic movie.
a definitive, groundbreaking movie, and what it does with sign language specifically, and no sound and no audio,
If
and
people
how
don't know,
immersive an
there's
experience
no
it is.
subtitles either, and you
Yeah.
just
And so
it's
for a film like that, I would call groundbreaking. Coda is just a really, again, I really like the movie. I think
it's a
it's a very
nice movie.
heartfelt, warm, feel
Crowd
good
pleaser. It's
movie
like
that
yeah.
it's like a warm
You
blanket on
could
a cold
recommend to
day.
basically anyone
Yeah.
and they'll probably enjoy it.
Like, even the
And
harshest cynics, I think, will find something to really enjoy. Like, I think, like, most people this entire season, if they have criticisms with Coda, and there has been a lot of people, the one thing that they haven't is Troy Kotzer. And
oh yeah, who is genuinely great. And
yeah,
I think he gave a wonderful speech last night. It was incredibly moving, and I tweeted out, like I said earlier, like it was a reason why I do love the Oscars, for those moments. And I thought it was a very wonderful moment. And yeah, Jane Campion winning Power of the Dog back to back women.
consecutive women
Yeah.
for, yeah, Chloe Zhao and now Jane Campion,
Mhm.
which is a huge deal, and hopefully, you know, moving forward, not just because it's right to nominate women, but there are so many talented uh, female filmmakers out there that are doing, and non-binary filmmakers that are doing great
Yeah.
work, um, that deserve to be in the category. It doesn't always have to be 5 dudes. And it's
I
not just because
absolutely agree. Yeah.
we're voting for, we're not doing tokenism either. Like, that's not the
No.
thing. Like, we want to vote for somebody that's doing great work. Like Julia DeCarno, again, I know T10 is very divisive, but like, that's another director where it's like it won the Palme d'Or, so it had some crossover
Yeah.
appeal. So it
But then
shows
it
you that
just
there
doesn't show
are,
up
you,
anywhere.
you
Yeah.
just need to do the work and look
Totally.
for films, and like Maggie Gyllenhaal
Yeah.
right
Where was
there
she?
for
Yeah.
directing,
And then that goes back to our conversation. And I hate, I don't actually agree with this, but I'm just kind of putting it out there of like, you have best actor and best actress. is it icky to split up director? In that way you showcase more people.
I think it is. I
I
mean, like,
agree with you. I'm not saying that that's what we should do. It's just like, it's an interesting, I know there's even been conversation of putting the acting awards together, which I also think is a bad idea, just
which the
because,
Gotham Awards kind of did that with
yeah.
supporting and leading categories. So it's just supporting and leads
Yeah,
now.
and maybe you have double the nominees. That way you, I don't know, but then you'd hate it to just then become 8 men and 2 women, right? In the
Right.
performances or something like that. And I'm not saying that's how it would go, but you just,
But probably
that's
would.
not, yeah.
Judging by the
So
Academy's sort of
looking at
track
the best
record.
director kind
Yeah.
of nominees. So I'm not saying that that's a solution either, because I feel like once you start splitting up every category into best women and best men is just like not super great. Um, so yeah, you had Troy Kotzer, which was a wonderful moment. You had Ariana DeBose, who also gave a great speech. I think their 2 speeches for the best supporting awards uh, were wonderful. She was the first award of the night, at least on the broadcast, and I thought she handled herself very, very well, and she'll be a superstar for sure.
Yeah, I mean, her next
Um,
movie is Argyle, the Matthew Vaughn film, which
oh
is
yeah,
Apple TV
nice.
Plus. So,
There you go. There you
and again,
go.
I hope after this as well for Troy Kotzer that he gets cast in a lot more stuff and gets to do things that, even are outside of the box. Like, I don't want him to be pigeonholed to one thing.
Yeah, I agree. And like, it's great. I think CODA is fantastic, like we just said. But like, yeah, give him other roles that just aren't focused on his being deaf and things like that too. Totally agree with that. You have, oh, let's stay in the acting. We talked about Will Smith. I'm sick of it.
I
Like,
want to quickly say that, like,
yeah,
what also should have been a really important moment is that Will Smith is only the 5th black man to ever win an Oscar for Best Actor.
it's wild.
Yeah, it's like, again, the Academy's been around now for 94 years, you know?
So like 89 of them. It's just, it's ridiculous. But like, yeah, it should have been such a great moment. And again, I genuinely love Will Smith, and it's just, he's his own worst enemy in this case. So like, it should have been this great moment for him, for the
His
Williams
family,
sisters and
yeah.
like his family, everyone, and it just became this kind of blubbering kind of apology that he thought he, needed to make, but then still kind of defend my family kind of thing. So I don't know. It was just everyone was waiting for that moment for sure. I think with, bated breath, we were all just kind of like, what the hell is going to happen
How
here?
is
Because
this
it
gonna
looks
go
like,
down?
yeah, because
And the
he,
other thing about that was weird, I'm sure you noticed it as well, but like that
that
insert
cut,
shot where like
yeah,
it
of the
almost felt like they
Oscars.
were doing that just in case something happened.
And no, I think something did, because he said, "I hope they don't see that on TV."
Oh,
So
like
I
he
think,
spat up or something like
yes,
that.
I think when because he was crying so much, and I think I don't know, but maybe when people, he maybe wiped his face and a big snot trail came or something like that. Like, that's what I assume they cut away from, just to kind
Right.
of save him from even more embarrassment, I guess,
Right.
is just like that. Again, I'm hypothesizing. I haven't even heard anyone talk about that, but it was a weird moment to cut away to an Oscars logo and the Williams sisters in the crowd, right? Like, it was just a strange moment. But anyway, Jessica Chastain wins for Best Actress for The Eyes of Tammy Faye.
Yawn.
That the Oscar clip, I'm like, oh no. I'm like, I don't know how, guys.
You
I
look at
was
that
like,
and then you look at Olivia Colman and you're
I
just like,
know, it's right
how?
there. It's right there. Those 2 Oscar clips back to back were jarring. And then you're just like, yeah, you know what? Sometimes, like you say, Eric, the most is what wins.
Or
And
if
it's
you're
just
playing a
like,
real person, like
yeah, that also helps too.
if Coleman or Cruz won, I'm only excluding Stewart because she played a real person.
Sure.
If Coleman or Cruz won, it would be nice because it would show you that, like, okay, we can actually embrace characters that are original whole cloth, even if they're based on adaptations of other material, like The Lost
Yeah.
Daughter is. But like, we can it doesn't have to always be based on like somebody who exists,
Yeah,
and
totally.
Stewart as well, I think would have been a
I like
fine.
Jessica Chastain
I
too.
do, I
So
do too. I do too. And like Jessica Chastain, I think should have been nominated for The Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby. I think she was wonderful in Take Shelter, Tree of Life. I mean, she's bad in some stuff. I think she's fine in the eyes of Tammy Faye. I think she's the best thing about that movie, and I wish,
sure.
like House of Gucci, that the filmmaking kind of met her
Yeah.
But I also have problems with the film itself in terms of how it turns her into an LGBTQ advocate in a way that she really wasn't, and like how it
Mhm.
kind of like softens her own sort of impact negatively on sort of televangelism and things like that and her exploits.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, she's been nominated. She was nominated 3 times. You know, it kind of was like a moment for her to be due as well. It kind of is also weird that both her and Cruz are nominated, and all I could think of like during that montage was, oh yeah, the 355, because Lupita Nyong'o is
Oh,
also
right. Yeah.
in the crowd
And
and
she was
was,
yeah.
yeah. So it's just like, yeah, I mean, Chastain's done better work, and she does have performances that I do feel can be a little bit too ham-fisted at times, and sometimes that works. I think it works in movies like Crimson Peak or A Most Violent Year, but then you look at something like Interstellar, which is a film I've come to like more and more on subsequent
Same,
watches,
same.
but there's scenes with her character, especially in the kind of like, you know, eureka moment where she throws papers in the air, that is so over the top. And like, yeah, the last few performances she's given in movies, I do feel have kind of like either been phoned in or just so cartoonish.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Um, Going on to the screenplay awards, you had Kenneth Branagh taking it for Belfast and Sean Heder for Coda. Again, two fairly safe choices. Sometimes I like when original screenplay goes the kind of, oh, like I think I picked worst person in the world. Did you also pick worst
I
person in
think
the world?
so, yeah, because I was
Um,
thinking like originally, so Brana and Paul Thomas Anderson going into this were both nominated. Brana was nominated for 8 Academy Awards in total, and then Anderson's been nominated for 11. And so a lot of people thought, you know, in the last month or so, Anderson was finally going to get his due. It'd be a really nice moment as well, coming full circle, having worked with Philip Seymour Hoffman to Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, Cooper Hoffman. But then the sort of the discourse with Licorice Pizza and the controversy behind that, and we've talked a lot about that already,
yeah,
kind of soured that movie quite a bit, to the point where even though the film was nominated for picture, directing, and screenplay, that's all it was nominated for. Oh yeah, and another person that should have been nominated, an actress in the leading role, is both Alana Haim and
yeah,
Renette Reinsve for the worst person
yeah.
in the world. So it's like, okay, well, now that might not happen. And then the worst person in the world was starting to surge. Like, more people were seeing it because it got a late release date or was released in February. So you think, okay, maybe that's going to be the surprise win. But then Belfast is like, okay, originally Belfast, everybody thought was going to be the best picture winner after TIFF and after, you know, the fall festival season in general. Um, so it's like, okay, well, maybe we should give it to Kenneth Branagh, because again, nominated 8 times in total in categories ranging from best picture to directing to acting to short film. So, and he's been around since, I mean, he made his film debut with Henry V in 89. So he's been
Right.
around for quite some time now. So again, it's a due
And you could
moment.
tell with the reaction, that's what it kind
And
of
he is a
was, right?
likable guy. Like
Totally. I like
he
Kenneth Branagh too. And
I
I like Belfast enough, but
yeah,
yeah,
Belfast is, but Belfast, I think even more so than Coda, is that film that we'll completely forget about in like a
sure.
year's time, especially if like somebody were to do trivia and be like, what won the Oscar for best original screenplay
In
in 20,
2020, 22 or
yeah,
whatever.
and you'd be like, fuck, what was it? And then when the answers revealed, it'd be like, oh yeah, Belfast, that movie. I haven't watched
A
that
movie that
since,
I thought my parents would love. I talked to them about it and they're like, "Yeah, it was all right." I'm
yeah.
like, "Oh, okay." Where Coda, they were like, "Oh my god, it was great."
My producer and
Um,
editor Judy Kalo likes that movie quite a bit, but it also
I
it's
like
a
it.
very I do too. I think like Kieran Hines' nomination is wonderful, and like it's not a bad movie, but it is very middle of the road and kind of manipulative in its sentiments. And
Sure.
even if you do like it, I think, you know, a lot of people that can be critical even of the stuff that they like can at least admit that the film is playing on, you know, both nostalgia and a sentimentality that can be quite manipulative, and that's what
Mhm.
that movie is. Is it the only film that does that? No, and it won't be the last. And like, it's not fair necessarily to kind of like pigeonhole it just
Sure.
to that, but it is there. But yeah, the Brana thing, like I joked about it on Twitter. I think like Brana really won for his mustache in Death of the Nile. That's kind of like what pushed him over the
Yeah.
edge for that. Because again, like somebody else brought up the point that like it was a weird night for Wild Wild West to be
Yeah, someone put that clip out of it.
celebrated, you know, with both
Yeah.
Will Smith and Kenneth Branagh winning awards.
Wiki. CODA winning. We've talked about CODA quite a bit, but shout out to The Lost Daughter, and Power of the Dog, and Drive My Car being in that category, and half of Dune. Best animated feature, something I do want to talk about. I think I manifested chaos last night when I was like, the only thing I want to happen is Mitchell's versus the Machines winning best animated, and if not, I just want chaos at the Oscars. And yeah, that definitely happened. And Encanto beat out Mitchell's versus the Machines, which is not surprising at all. But and I like Encanto quite a bit. I talked about it on the 118th episode where Eric and I were I felt like a fever dream getting back from LA and having to go straight to that press screening of Encanto.
Which is funny because we went from a Netflix sort of
Power of the
event
Dog
to
event.
a Disney screening,
Yeah.
and now a Disney movie wins over a Netflix film.
Netflix movie. Yeah.
I mean, Sony as well in conjunction,
Yeah.
I guess.
Not surprising, and I think Encanto is a lovely movie. On my second watch, I was like, oh damn, I actually really do really like this movie, and I think my brain again just wasn't working that morning. So I totally understand it winning. It's just an unfortunate thing because I really love Mitchell's versus the Machines. It was my second favorite movie
You
of
thought with
last
your
year.
heart, man. You thought with your heart.
I know, which is fine. I didn't even keep track this year at what my.
I didn't either. I didn't even do any polls or anything or pools.
No,
this
we
year
did.
either.
We did ours, and maybe I can't even remember what I picked half the time. I know I
Yeah.
got this wrong, but like I'm not. I don't know. I have nothing to prove.
But then again, the Encanto thing, even though it won animated, it didn't translate over to song, which you would have thought
was No Time to Die, which
Yeah.
I did pick.
Yeah.
But sticking in animated, shout out to Phil Lord and Chris Miller for kind of sticking up for animation as a art form and as a cinematic art form, because
and calling out Disney too.
And they didn't love how they handled it. Like Disney, which is their bread and butter, is as much as they try to get more and more into live action, and Marvel and Star Wars is very successful in their live action Disney stuff, remakes of their animated films, and not like most of their stuff is animation. And I know it appeals to children first and foremost, but animation is an art form. Look at Flea being in this category.
Yep.
That can be for everyone and for adults. Like there are even some, Flea is for adults. Younger people can enjoy it if they can comprehend it. But Encanto, the whole thing there of like kind of making fun of animated movies, of that it's something for children and that parents just have to endure them, is something that they were mad about. And I totally understand that, because again, something like Mitchell's versus the Machines, a lot of Pixar stuff, like we talk about it time and time again, that like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff for kids in those movies. And yeah, maybe they're the driving force of what makes an animated film quote unquote successful. But it can be for everyone, and there's some great stuff in there for adults, and it doesn't need to be kind of diminished as this other thing. And even that discourse is happening with Star Wars lately too, of there's always discourse with Star Wars, but
surprise.
Hello there. Like, because with Obi-Wan coming out and people talking about wanting to see Darth Maul fight Obi-Wan again, and people are like, this shit happened, guys, already. Like no one pays attention to Clone Wars or Rebels as like valid forms of storytelling of building the Star Wars universe, of stuff that is canon, that very much happened. And like,
well, I can understand like somebody not watching the animated stuff and only sticking with the live action and not
fine.
knowing about that. Yeah.
But it's one thing to just be like,
animation and say it's below you and it's only for children.
Yeah.
Like this is not a new concept in any way whatsoever. Like there has always been animated movies for grown-ups telling grown-up stories.
Totally.
There are movies like Fantastic Planet and Watership Down, or even like stuff that's not good, like Fritz the Cat and things like that. Like it's like
Sausage
animation
Party.
Yeah, or I mean, even Who Framed Roger Rabbit isn't really for kids. It's it's made for like adults. And so like animation, yeah, like obviously Disney has a huge claim over the art form, but it's not all theirs. I mean, like even with stop motion animation, Anomalisa, one of the best
Yeah.
movies in the last few years, being a Charlie Kaufman film, um, explores the form perfectly. And I think Lord and Miller with their productions, whether it be them producing or directing or at least even just shepherding new talent and just getting people's voices heard, they understand that they can blend both family elements and elements that are meant for everybody in like that way
Universal
that,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and like there's so much in the Mitchells versus the Machines that is more open-minded and actually saying something than like Luca, which cut out its gay theme, which doesn't go well with what's going on in Florida right now and the don't say gay bill and stuff like that, where at least like the Mitchells versus the Machines, it's not overt, but I mean, the main character is a lesbian. And
Yep.
like that, like it doesn't shy away from that and it doesn't hide it, but it doesn't also make it like a big thing. It's just, yeah, it's who
That's
she
who she
is.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's not about that, but it's in
No.
there.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, that's how it should be. And yeah, so that was kind of Encanto is very deserving. So I'm fine with it. It's just, I love Mitchell's versus the
But it's
Machines.
also funny that a
Um,
bunch of white people accepted the award for Encanto.
That
So
was kind of weird, right?
yeah,
That always happens. It's not great. Drive My Car wins Best International Feature Film, which is exactly kind of what we
I was
thought would
pissed
happen.
with the speech because they didn't let Ryosuke Hamaguchi actually
Finish.
give his speech
No.
because
Well, that he did. He told them to stop, which I
I know,
appreciate.
no, I think he has every right to do that. But in terms of again, whoever was directing the event and that
It's a
moment,
weird, a bad choice, right? Like now,
exactly.
international film, you play him off. He gets 2 minutes.
Well, it
It's
even
like,
goes to like the red carpet stuff. I didn't really watch a lot of it, but I did watch some of it and I caught how like the interviewers were really uncomfortable and didn't know how to interact properly with people like Troy Kotzer or Marley Matlin because they didn't have that experience. And so they're rushing through asking them, tepid questions, but they're trying to get like sound bites out of them as quickly as possible, and you have to give the translator time to communicate with them and allow them to respond. And there's just this ignorance that is going on with these reporters, these journalists, that it kind of feels like, okay, you need to be better experienced and more compassionate and understanding. And like you think like you know these companies or studios, these major outlets would take their journalists aside and say like you need to know how to talk to
yeah,
everybody and
yeah,
understand how everybody talks and how everybody doesn't talk in fast-paced sound bites. And it's the same thing with watching someone like Ryosuke Hamaguchi go up on stage, who English is not his first language.
but he's trying.
He's trying. He did have a translator up with him, and when he paused, that was a pause. That wasn't him being done. And and
Yeah,
and that
he's
is something.
gathering his thoughts, or yeah,
Yeah, and again, like I know you said that you made the joke about like you wanted, like pure chaos was going to happen. It felt like Will Packer was the producer of the Night's event, and he's a guy who produced movies like Ride Along 2 and Night School, Kevin Hart gems. But I would say that like halfway through the show, the Safdie brothers took over.
I know, dude, it was wild.
But
Um,
that annoyed me. But I also really like the Hamaguchi, and also just thinking like, again, I don't want to dwell on the Will Smith thing completely, but I wonder what somebody mentioned this and I retweeted it, but I wonder what Hamaguchi was thinking about this, because part of Drive My Car is that there's a character that this is mainstream big celebrity that gets into a kerfuffle at one point, and how the altercations have an impact on the production that they're working on Uncle Vanya. So
mhm.
it's weird that like out of all the movies of like art imitating life, that's the one that kind of
Which is what
feels,
the movie is about, and then you
yeah.
see art imitating life at the Oscars. Yeah. Um, Best doc went to Summer of Soul, which we have talked about. That Questlove was done a little bit dirty, but his speech was wonderful. Everyone, if you missed it in the moment, which is totally understandable, unfortunately, but go watch it. Like
and
it
go
was,
watch the movie. Summer of
and
Soul
yeah,
is available on Disney Plus in Canada. It's available on Hulu in the US. One of the best films I saw at Sundance last year, along with Flea. And CODA was also one of the films that
yeah,
played at Sundance. So all three of those movies did very, very well. I mean, obviously Flea only got nominated. It got shut out on the three
sure,
categories,
but still,
like I predicted, because
yeah,
I think there was this kind of thing where like each sort of membership or group was thinking like, okay, like we won't vote for it here because it'll probably win there if it does
yeah,
win. So
yeah. But good for Questlove.
yeah,
Love that dude.
it's
Uh,
it's a great win.
The shorts. So Queen of Basketball won for best documentary short subject. Best live action short film went to The Long Goodbye. That's where Riz Ahmed got his Oscar.
Yep.
Best animated short film went to The Windshield Wiper, and those were the shorts. So yeah, those were all kind of relegated to the pre-show kind of like we'll cut down your acceptance speech kind of thing. So that's a huge bummer for everyone there, but again, a guy we love, Riz Ahmed, like it's his first Oscar, right? Like
Yep.
and
So he's been
and
nominated twice, 2 years in a row, with Sound of Metal for actor in a
yeah,
leading role, and now best live action short. And now he's an Oscar winner. And yeah, that moment, the clip that you saw, and then there was footage that Kyle Buchanan posted online, and I'm sure there was a couple other people that posted different angles as well, was like, oh man, that was a really good speech,
yeah,
you know, and from like
and
a guy that you want to hear talk, and like
yeah.
it's like, man,
I
come
know
on.
those are the weird choices. We talked about Hans Zimmer winning his first Oscar in 30 years. He was in Amsterdam, so he wasn't even there. I don't know. He's probably working on something, I assume.
Oh, he's working on
Um,
something.
yeah, yeah. I loved that photo of him in the house coat, or
Oh,
like
it's
the.
amazing.
And
It would again would have been an amazing if he was there, but it
yeah.
also would have been
Do you think he
funny.
skipped intentionally, knowing it wasn't his award was being in the pre-show, or maybe he's just busy?
Maybe. I mean, like he is a busy guy, and I know he has
He's
like he
yeah.
can make his
Remember when
own.
we saw him in concert? That was
Oh
dope.
yeah,
That was
started
sick.
with Driving Miss Daisy.
It was sick. That was so much fun.
But yeah, like
Um,
there's another guy that like you think if this sort of was implemented in earlier years, we wouldn't have seen Ennio Morricone win
yeah,
for The Hateful Eight, which was a huge moment, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And then moving forward, like what happened? Like we were talking about, like what happened if Johnny Greenwood won? You
yeah.
know?
It's ridiculous. Best original song went to No Time to Die. So Billie Eilish becomes the first person born in the 21st century to win an
Oh,
Oscar.
don't you feel old?
So a little bit, yeah, a little bit.
And Phineas as well.
And Phineas, yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he wasn't part of. Sorry, Billie Eilish and Phineas won the
Both won, yes,
Oscar.
but Billie Eilish specifically
Both
is.
performed. I thought her performance was great.
Yep.
Very traditional, but like it was just a wonderful performance of that song. And Bond songs, they're rolling now. You're just like, hey, imitate Skyfall moving forward, and you probably have a good shot.
I mean, the Spectre song sucks, and it's like
And it
it
won.
still won.
So it's just like all you got to do is that slower kind of Bond song that all kind of sounds similar.
I feel the secret
It's like,
ingredient though was also Daniel Craig. Like I feel moving
sure,
forward that like because Bond got serious too, right?
sure.
Like Bond
So the
became more
songs got
serious.
serious.
So
Yeah.
so the songs become
I want some
serious.
zany Bond songs again. Give me like,
Well,
I don't know.
so yeah. So with the Bond songs, like
Give me The Weekend.
oh, but the weekend song would be great. Like it
Great.
would be
That's
like
what I mean.
it would be.
Sorry, I don't mean him by zany. I just know that it would be.
Yeah, like get Weird
It would
Al to
sound
do
cool.
it, like Spy
Yeah,
Hard too.
sure. Spy Hard's a great Bond song.
Spy Hard, a
The
great
Bond
Bond thong.
God,
It'd be
speaking of
amazing
Wild West.
if
shout
they
out to
sent out
Cisco.
for promotional material for No Time to Die. They sent out
Bond
thongs
thong.
with Daniel Craig's face on the tail.
Anyways, congrats. Phineas might get nominated, and Billie Eilish might get nominated next year as well.
I think they will for Turning Red. I mean, those songs are so catchy,
and
and
they'll
like
probably
they perfectly.
that performance will be a lot of fun next year.
Well, I
sure.
didn't realize how good that they were. Like, I mean, I'm not like a Billie Eilish aficionado. I know her best from like that episode of Hot Ones and thinking like she's a live action version of a Harmony Korine character.
Sure.
But I like her. I mean, like everything I've seen of her, like in terms of like her attitude towards things and what have you. But
yeah,
it's just really interesting how versatile this duo is at sort of emulating different song styles, like the boy band stuff. Like if I didn't know it was them, I
Oh,
would
I
have never
wouldn't. Yeah, I
guessed.
know for sure. We have breaking news. Thank you to my wonderful fiance Nevis for sending this through. So this is from Kyle Buchanan. We just talked about him on Twitter. He says Will Smith's reps just sent out a statement from the Star that features an apology to Chris Rock. I was out of line and quote, I was out of line and I was wrong. So then here is below. Please find the statement that Will Smith has posted on his Instagram. Here is the statement. Violence in all its forms is poisonous and destructive. My behavior at last night's Academy Awards was unacceptable and inexcusable. Jokes at my expense are a part of the job, but a joke about Jada's medical condition was too much for me to bear, and I reacted emotionally. I would like to publicly apologize to you, Chris. I was out of line and I was wrong. I am embarrassed, and my actions were not indicative of the man I want to be. There is no place for violence in a world of love and kindness. I would also like to apologize to the Academy, the producers of the show, all of the attendees, and everyone watching around the world. I would like to apologize to the Williams family and my King Richard family. I deeply regret that my behavior has stained what has been an otherwise gorgeous journey for all of us. I am a work in progress. Sincerely, Will. So he just sent that out. Just thought I'd sorry to interrupt you, Eric.
No, that's good. No, I think that was important to read.
So that was at 7:09. Yeah, it was like 20 minutes ago. So thoughts on that? I mean, I guess obviously his publicist is
Yeah.
making him do that, but
Yes.
like it's the smart thing to do.
I mean,
And
that's what should have been done
last night, or
yeah.
like that's what when I was talking to Nevis last night, and because there was that video of his publicist coming over to him during the show, and
Trying to do damage control.
I thought she would have just went to him and said the first thing you do if you win, you have to apologize. And I thought
Yeah.
that's what she was saying. And it almost
Or
seemed like
you
he was
should
still
leave. Like that's the other thing.
or he was still so emotional that he felt like he needed to kind of still defend his actions, even though he did apologize to the Academy and to the people watching last night. But this now apologizes to Chris Rock and apologizes to the King Richard team and the Williams sisters. So obviously a good thing when someone acknowledges that they did something wrong and apologizes. Obviously it's a very PR sounding statement. Like
it's very written. It's
yeah.
Polished. But again, like I understand, like if you have those people at your disposal, I mean, like it probably would have been better if it like truly came from the heart. Like
that's what I mean.
You reading it does sound like
it sounds like a PR statement.
Yeah, middle management team kind of put this together, and Will Smith signed off.
Took 24 hours to do it, and
Yeah.
I bet you because there's rumors that the Academy might say something tonight of what they're going to do, or whether it's a suspension or kick him out of the Academy or anything like that. Like I don't know, but it'll be interesting. And obviously this is the first step towards making sure something like apologizing for it, I guess, is something the Academy might even have said that you need to do. Who knows, but we can't speculate. But like,
again, but also I think the Academy needs to
also say that they were in the wrong a little bit too.
Yeah, and say like, yeah, we don't.
I'm sure we'll get a statement from them soon too.
But you need to do more than just say that.
They'll make a statement specifically about this soon.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, which could be tonight, but they're on West Coast time, so we shall see. So,
well, thanks to Nevis for sending that.
Yes, shout out to Nevis. She is she gets an executive producer credit on this episode or every episode.
Like Javier Bardem and Being the Ricardos.
Absolutely. All right.
See, there's another thing quickly that, like, in terms of like that opening thing that you mentioned, it's like, making fun of people's appearance. There was the one joke, and I mean, like, everybody seemed fine with it, but like Amy Schumer said, like, oh, Timothy Chalamet has really aged,
and then
since
showed J.K. Simmons.
Yeah. So it's like, and even in Being the Ricardos, a part of J.K. Simmons's character, in terms of his insecurity and vulnerability, is him being an older man and kind of always taking the brunt of
we've said this ageism not something people get offended at yet, I guess, even though I mean it is a problem. I think
disabilities and ageism are the two things where it's like
that we haven't caught up yet.
No, disability is getting there. It's becoming more of like an icky kind of thing when like it's portrayed wrong, or it's made the butt of the butt of a joke.
Yeah.
But when it comes to ageism, it's still like that one thing where it's like, some people are more delicate and understanding with it than others, and like it's just one of those things where like that does kind of feel like one of the last outliers of sort of dealing with any kind of
Yeah.
ism, I guess. But and not even necessarily not addressing it, just kind of like being mature about it.
Hmm.
But going back to the Bond thing, and even just like the clips, so like
Man,
the
Tony Hawk and Shaun White introducing the Bond
and Kelly
montage
Slater,
is so weird.
that has nothing to do with Bond. Like there's
He's
like
extreme, dude.
he drinks Mountain Dew after every
I'm like,
action
who
scene.
is think like who's like, oh, we gotta do a really kind of lazy James Bond montage. Who should we get to intro it out of the history of Bond? There's all this history. Judy Dench is there.
Javier Bardem, Rami
Rami
Malek.
Malek, like they're all there. Who should we get to intro this? And then you're like, who James Bond's extreme though. The kids think James Bond is extreme. Let's get some extreme sports athletes to introduce this. It's just that type of thinking where it's like that boomer kind of well, there I go. That's kind of ageist what I just did. So I take that back. But like it's just that kind of
Well,
thinking of like
it's an
that
out of
feels like
touch kind of thing,
yeah,
right?
that's what I mean. Out of touch is exactly what I was gonna say. Where it's just like it just seems like a strange choice to intro a Bond montage. Then the Bond montage just felt very half-assed. I don't know. Like, did
Yeah,
you feel the same way? Like, it
yeah,
just
like
felt like
and also BAFTA, I think, did a better job already, and it made more sense to do it at BAFTA because it is a British
yeah.
institute of a character that's been around for 60 years now in terms of the film adaptations, and they had Dame Shirley Bassey perform "Diamonds Are
Oh,
Forever."
that's incredible.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
and like
awesome.
you can go watch that right now on YouTube. It's
I
there,
will
it's
watch that
available.
after this.
Yeah,
Speaking
with the clip
sorry,
show, it
go
just
ahead.
kind of felt like, yeah, it's like I love Bond, even though again, like there are
Great
problematic
song.
elements throughout. Yeah, I mean, "Live and Let Die" is an amazing song. It's even better than the movie, which was the first Roger Moore film. Um, but yeah, to have those three guys, it almost felt like a bad version of Ad Libs or something like
It
put
was the weird.
together.
It felt like an SNL skit thing
Yeah,
at that point. Like it was so bizarre. And then so jumping off that before we get to the rest of the awards. So speaking of anniversaries, they also did this thing throughout the show where they reunited the cast or crew of certain films that were celebrating anniversaries, like the random 28th anniversary
anniversary
of
for
Pulp
Pulp Fiction. You're
Fiction,
2 years
which is
away. You
like
can't
I'm
wait.
like, you can't. It's so weird.
I
Like,
know
could you
Samuel
not get
Jackson got
any?
one of the honorary
I get it.
Oscars,
I get it.
but
And it's an
yeah,
iconic movie. I get it. They're all there. And I'm sure part of the producers is like, who can we get? Who can we reunite that will come out for an award and do it? And they'll make up any anniversary. It doesn't even have to be an even number or anything like that. 28th is so weird. But you also had The Godfather, you had Francis Ford Coppola and Al
White Men
Pacino.
Can't Jump.
And yeah, you had
That
White Men Can't
classic.
Jump. Like, what else there was another one too, or were those the only
Juno.
ones? Juno, yeah, as well. So like a random choice of movies. It was kind of a cool idea in theory. It was
Well,
just
even we should also mention Cabaret as well was kind of briefly
sure,
mentioned because it was also celebrating its 50th anniversary because Godfather and Cabaret were the two films that went head to head at the Oscars back then, and Bob Fosse won directing and The Godfather won Best Picture. So having Liza Minnelli at the end, they
yeah,
kind of reference Cabaret like all of
totally.
5
They just had
seconds.
Lady Gaga come out with her, which I thought like I people were talking about that moment with Lady Gaga, and I thought she handled it well,
Oh,
being out there with
she was amazing. She was
she was
amazing.
fantastic. Yeah,
Again, I think it was maybe a bit of a blunder on the Academy's part because
sure.
you can clearly tell that Liza Minnelli
Yeah,
is not completely lucid and she's at an age that maybe you know it, where's the line with when it comes to dignity and respecting somebody's
I agree.
privacy and things like that. But Lady Gaga with also Tony Bennett as well, who was in the early stages of Alzheimer's when he was
Yeah,
doing his last tour, really again showed compassion and understanding and support.
And respect, I think,
Yeah.
too. Like, I feel like she's shown a ton of respect to those like legends that she owes a lot to,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like,
And that makes me like
um,
her, and like
oh, totally,
getting over
even
like House of
more.
Gucci, you know.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've always, early in her career with all the wild stunts and stuff like that was always just like, oh man, but like the more I see of her, the more I like her. I think she is a good actress, even with stuff like House of Gucci and I thought A Star Is Born, she was good in it. Just I thought miscast because I would have gone with someone more unknown. But I think she's wonderful, and I think that moment with Liza Minnelli was um, you know it was great. Like I agree with you in the part of being like, you know, even asking her to do that, like where maybe her family okayed it and everything like that. And it is a nice moment, but maybe there was a way to do that where you wouldn't have had her presenting or reading from her cue cards or something like that to kind of just save her from that. But I think Lady Gaga handled it super well, and it was a nice moment.
And
Um,
that was like the last moment where it was like, okay, like at least, even though the whole evening is a write off, at least that
because
is
that was Best Picture, right?
yeah, a
Yeah,
bittersweet way to
yeah,
at least end it, and it's not all bad, you
yeah.
know.
I agree.
I
Uh,
even liked Kevin Costner's intro
yeah,
for
the
best director.
porno
Like
theater.
I know that he was droning on, but like it.
I zoned out, but like, yeah,
Yeah, when he says my first adult film and everybody started to laugh, I wish they cut to like Paul Thomas Anderson just for like a
yeah,
Boogie
yeah.
Nights reference. But um, I thought that like even though he goes on and it kind of just felt like an old guy kind of just taking up more time, which was actually kind of funny because they were
Sure,
running so
yeah.
far behind at that point. But I found that the sincerity of him talking about how he watched how the West was won as a child and kind of fell in love with films, and that was the movie that kind of, you know, made him want to be a filmmaker and an actor. Like it was very earnest, and like I kind of wanted more of that. Like it didn't feel like he was just reading off of cue cards or a teleprompter or, you know,
I like
something
Jane
like that.
Campion's. That was very intense.
That was very dramatic, Kevin.
Or dramatic. Yeah, yeah,
Which
yeah.
is also funny because like one of my favorite Kevin Costner bits ever is in the Madonna Truth or Dare documentary where he goes backstage after one of her performances and she asks him what he thought of it. And Madonna I mean, Madonna's always kind of been provocative, but like in the early 90s at kind of like the height of her popularity and her power, her shows were like burlesque shows. And like Kevin Costner's response is like, oh, it was neat. And then
Yeah,
Madonna
yeah.
like starts making fun of him behind his back. He's like, "Oh, it was neat."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, and then finally, actually, I'll go through Eyes of Tammy Faye wins Best Makeup and Hairstyling, which we kind of talked about, and
The most.
Cruella wins Best Costume Design. So we called both of those. And both of those, yeah, kind of make sense. Costume design for Cruella, I liked Jenny Beavan's speech. She's always wonderful. And then Eyes of Tammy Faye was one given away before the ceremony started. And then I might as well ring these off all together. Dune wins Best Sound, Best Production Design, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, and Best Visual Effects. So uh technically that half a movie very technically fantastic. So it swept a lot of those kind of below the line technical
Well, it
awards.
even won production design, which I was actually
Yeah,
thinking Nightmare Alley had a shot at
sure,
winning
yeah.
because that movie
And
is
I said West Side
so,
Story, yeah.
you know, heavily. Yeah, both of those movies are just, I would say, even more like their production design is more upfront. Where like once you get to the planet Arrakis, you know, a lot of it is the desert landscape,
Yeah,
right? So
that and yeah, but you could tell like the Academy was just like, it was a technically phenomenal movie, so let's just give it all the technical awards. So it
the same way
ended up,
that Mad Max Fury
yeah.
Road did, right? Like
Yes,
that
where
was
it,
kind of
it
its
won the most
trajectory.
octors.
Actors.
Whew, long couple 24 hours. Um Dune
Alfred
picked up
Molina, I think,
6, right?
actually won the most
Yeah.
Octors.
It picked up, hey, Spider-Man No Way Home did get a shot. I
And
also
he was
love,
there too because he's one of the board members.
oh,
So
cool. And then what was I saying? Oh, Dune, what was I saying? I forget. Anyways,
cinematography, I think
oh
that's
yeah, Greg Fraser. I know
such
you
a
wanted Ari
moment.
Wagner to win, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things. It's like, well, uh, I mean, Ari Wagner, I think will be back anyways. I mean, she's such a talented cinematographer that like she's got a couple movies coming up next year, one of which is the Florence Pugh film The Wonder. So
Cool.
and Greg Fraser will as well. I think Greg Fraser is going to get nominated for the Batman. Like I think
I think he will too. Yeah.
but like it's almost like I rather have Greg Fraser won for Dune Part 2, or as they should
Right.
call it, the second part of Dune.
The other half.
The other half of Dune, because like again, like it's just like, yeah, it's technically beautiful, but I guess it's like
The IMAX cinematography. It's a very like, the scope of everything watching that movie, and that's why I understand it won all these technical awards, is because it's just so much. Like, it is bombastic and in your face and gigantic, right? Like, I get that, where Power of the Dog, beautiful movie, but you know Dune just is fucking blasting you in the face with like
with sand.
with a sand blaster to the face on a giant IMAX screen. And I'm sure Warner Brothers went out of their way to try to show the Academy that movie in IMAX and stuff, right? So
Yeah.
I think that kind of, unfortunately, it's more quote unquote memorable because it's fucking gigantic in front of your face, and it is nice looking. It's just I
Yeah.
felt like a lot of it looked kind of similar.
It's rough,
right?
it's coarse, and it gets in everywhere, and that's, a problem with only half of a movie. You need the payoff to enjoy, spending the day on a sandy terrain. And again, like I don't like being in this position either, because I really do love Denis Villeneuve and I want
Oh,
the world for the
we're
guy.
playing into the half a movie thing, which is part of the characters, but like we do believe it as well.
But it is also strange that out of anybody that could have been snubbed for director that this year or last year, Denis Villeneuve is the one that's snubbed, and yet it
Yeah.
gets 10 nominations. I mean, you could say the
Win
same thing
6,
for
yeah.
CODA as well, because CODA also is like the first movie to win Best Picture and Adapted Screenplay, but not have a directing nomination since like Grand Hotel, which was like in the 30s. So it's like,
The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel.
sure, but and like even something like Driving Miss Daisy, which won Best Picture but wasn't nominated
Sure.
for directing, like it's always interesting when
Those splits happen or
those
whatever.
those splits happen, or when the split happens and the director of the Best Picture uh isn't nominated. It's kind
Yeah.
of interesting there.
And that's the Academy, the 94th Academy Awards. Like we said, super chill. Probably everything will go very smoothly next year for the 95th ceremony.
I think Paul Dano's probably going to kill somebody on stage,
Yeah,
as the
for the
Riddler.
yeah. It's yeah, I don't know where they go from this. We already kind of made predictions of like the movies that could be there on our 118th draft. So if you guys want to check that out, I think there's a time code that you guys can jump to if you missed that and only want to see what we think might be there next year. And we've kind of talked about how do you fix the Oscars, and I think that's a conversation that might lead into the 100th. We're coming up on the 100th edition of the Oscars, and you got to
Yeah.
think that that's going to be a huge one, right? Like it's we're only 6 years away,
Or it'll be the
whatever,
most
and like
disappointing of all the
that's also
Oscars.
true, but you got to think a big one like at the 100th Academy Awards has to be this gigantic thing. um I don't know how you fix it. I really do think that we should have more awards, not less. I think they all should be shown. If it's a fucking 6-hour ceremony, then I don't know how you fix that, whether
Well,
you
you
make it.
said something smart really at the beginning, where you said something smart like you never do.
I
Uh
don't, so that's fair.
but you did say like almost make it like, a wrestling event where it's like
2-night
over the
event.
2 nights or something like that.
Yeah.
But maybe it's too costly and like,
But not
scheduling wise, and
renting the Dolby Theater for 2 nights instead of 1 and having the same stage. It's just like, who do you
but
bring
does
each night?
everybody
Will
want to
all the
come
be
back
there 2
for
nights? Then you split people up of going, well, if your nomination is this night, come on Saturday. And like, it's not like WrestleMania where you're like, the main event on Saturday is this event. Stone Cold Steve Austin coming out for the KO show with Kevin Owens or whatever in
God, it would
Texas.
be amazing to
But
see Steven Spielberg like pile drive Martin
yeah,
Scorsese
Stone
next
Cold
year.
Steve Austin come out and just stun everyone on stage. Be the best. So I don't know. A 2-night event, I don't think you're ever gonna. I mean, a streamer does make sense to your point of like, ironically, if a streamer picked up uh the next contract. I don't know when ABC's contract runs out. Does anyone? I don't know. But it's I don't know how you fix it. But
I think that's a question for the true professionals in terms of the people that are working behind the scenes. But even they are probably in a place where it's like they don't know what to do, because
I think
clearly this award show reflects that they don't know what they're doing.
I think you self-distribute it like the Game Awards. You don't like people are so
On
focused
LimeWire.
on yeah. On Twitch. Yeah, but here's the thing, like I made a joke about Twitch, but I'm actually being serious of like, you let it be available to everyone anywhere worldwide, not
Or you make it a
attached to a
premium
network.
event.
You make it commercial free. You make it like, or if you have to have commercials, play fucking movie trailers to the event. Like, um,
Cryptocurrency ads.
no, 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 no. But like I think like look at the Game Awards, because I actually do think that Jeff Keighley does. It's not perfect, don't get me wrong. I think the last Game Awards were a little bit messy with the amount of, you know, it, because he has to fund that show. There are a lot of weird ads and sponsored things and different things like that. You don't want like the fucking Little Caesars Best Picture Award goes to.
Well, that would be the Batman, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So or something like that. But I don't know, dude. Like I think either a streamer or that could make it commercial free because they can afford to.
Well,
Because it
it
would
would
go to
be an
their
Apple TV Plus or a Netflix or something that has deep pockets. I mean,
yeah.
even Disney Plus would be, although, I mean,
Yeah.
again,
But
they
then they
might
could
try
have
to
done that with
censor.
ABC, right? They could
Yeah.
have said it's also streaming on Disney Plus tonight. And then like and you could have, I don't know. I think making it commercial free does save a lot of that, because if you put it on a streamer and you charge your subscribers for it and they have a commercial free like version of their thing that you pay for, then like, you know,
But people
there you
do
go.
like the breaks. Like that is the one thing that, like,
Sure.
having been to the Critics' Choice Awards a few times, you understand, like, the breaks between the show is when everybody can either get up and snooze or go to the
That's fair. So
bathroom
you kind of
or
need
get a
that, but
drink
then
at the
maybe there's a
bar.
different way to do that. Like I said, like
Yeah.
maybe it is movie trailers, maybe it is highlight packages that are a bit longer. Maybe it's like the ceremony's still, 3-4 hours, or just tell everyone beforehand that it's 4 hours. And I don't know. I like the idea where the Game Awards is like you can watch it anywhere. You can watch it on YouTube, you can watch it on Twitch, anyone who wants to pick it up can broadcast it, you can co-stream it. Like imagine if we were allowed to watch the Oscars live, like over top of the broadcast, and actually put that out there. Is like if we tried to do that, we'd get a copyright thing from Disney right away that says you can't do that, or the Academy or something. So it's just like making it accessible to everyone, to make it really easy to access and stuff like that, and put it everywhere. And
I would
um
like to do a John Madden thing where, like, remember his football segments where, like,
yeah,
he'd
sure,
pause
you're like
scenes and, like,
drawing on it. Yeah.
so this
It's
is where everything
I'm
went
sure people
wrong in
did
this
that
night.
yesterday. um but I don't know. I really do think incorporating some form, like I hate to say it, but like marketing upcoming movies and making that an event. Like I feel like
Well, the Super Bowl
um
comparison, I think, is a good idea where, like, if you're going to have it on ABC, I mean, use the commercial time to promote trailers and things like that, not the show. And have kind of like make it like a preview night where, like, you can only see this, like, exclusive
these
teaser
trailers will
to this.
premiere and then they'll be online after, like they
Yeah.
always are. But if you want to be there first, advertise that Thor Love and Thunder trailer is going to premiere here. Apple's Flowers of the Killer
Killers of
Moon,
the
and like
Flower Moon. Yeah.
Killers of the Flowers of the Killer Moon. It's been a long day. It's stuff like that I think could really help it. And I don't know, still focus on the movies of the year, still make it an engaging fun show with performances and different things like that, but and give everyone their due. And if it goes long, it goes long. Just prepare people for that. And I don't know, man, but maybe I'm not a producer, so we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, overall, the night was, embarrassing, and then it went from embarrassing to awkward to almost unwatchable. And
It was hard. It went from unwatchable to like I can't believe this is happening to embrace the chaos, right?
yeah, and,
And
like, it
like
was it was enjoyable to kind of be snarky or glib and kind of make fun at, like, how ridiculous the Academy is with egg on its face, introducing these, awards or not even awards, these, polling segments, and, that truly backfiring on them on all
The
ends.
Johnny
And
Depp thing and stuff too.
yeah, like
And
it's
like,
so bad.
yeah.
And it's just like, again, it just shows you that this is an organization that is completely out of touch and doesn't know what their brand is anymore, and they need to go back to what they know best and to really focus on that, no matter how niche they think it is, or how it'll turn maybe some people away. Because I find the more personal you get, the more specific you get, the more universal you are. And like, I
Yeah.
think that if they really do focus on film and find a new way to focus on the films being nominated, no matter what they are, whether they're a small little movie like Drive My Car, or an epic sci-fi actioner like Dune, it's like, you need to make it about the movies. You
Mhm.
don't need to make it
The
about
movies.
the movies. You need to have Vin Diesel come out and say it's about the movies. The
See, that would have made
opulence,
everything.
the
That would have been.
opulence is not what it's about.
See, that kind of thing, like if they had Vin Diesel come out to start and just give this very strange like speech about the movies, it
Or
would
like
have been
start like a
incredible.
feud that's actually a promotion with Jason Momoa for Fast
The
10.
best. The
Oh, it
best.
would have been amazing.
See,
It would have
yeah,
been
even stuff like
incredible.
that. But anyways, thank you. It's been a wild 24 hours. It's been a wild Oscar season. Eric and I will be covering, we already said at the end of the last episode where we brought up movies that could show up next year. And speaking of that, you can check out a review for something like Everything Everywhere All at Once, which Eric and I just reviewed, which I'm sure we kind of have conversations a little bit about, like how wonderful that movie is and will it carry all the way to the next Academy Awards, which we already kind of talked about on that last show.
It better.
Um, I'm with you. Because that
Justice
movie
for
is
Swiss
really,
Army Man.
yeah, that movie is really why I love the movies, and I do love the
The
Oscars, and like
movies.
I really hope that they turn this shit around. And last night was just, it was a circus, and it was just unfortunate, but I think Coda is an enjoyable movie. If you haven't seen it, give it a shot. It's on Apple TV Plus. Like, shout out to Apple for winning, becoming the first streamer, and like to win the
Netflix is
best
just sitting
picture
there like,
is so mad. And like I don't know, man. That could change a lot of things too. With Apple winning, that might put, I don't, maybe more money into their film division. Netflix might take a step back and reassess because they just keep, I don't know if it's a huge deal for them, but they are trying very hard to get that and
well,
legitimize
I
them.
mean,
But
they you think with the Scorsese movie, that would have been the film to push them through. They had a middle of the road Aaron Sorkin movie, which would have been, I think, if it was a Paramount release still, because they bought it from Paramount, I think that would have won Best Picture at that point. Roma was a film that was highly respected, but then you still had people like Steven Spielberg at that moment saying a vote for Green Book is a vote for the theatrical
for
experience.
cinema,
So honestly, like looking at their crop next year, I'm sure they're going to have something that'll be kind of their front runner. But I also feel like they need to kind of really maybe do what Apple did and just kind of let the see where their
people make
cards
good
lie.
movies and then buy something good.
Well, no. Just let the movies
Sure.
play and see how they do and see what gets traction, and not kind of invest
Try
on
to
one.
force it on
Yeah,
people.
wait after the festival season is done. Wait after some of the critics awards have been given out. That's what CODA did. Like Apple did. Apple just didn't give a shit. And Apple this upcoming year has a Scorsese movie, which I'm sure they will push to a certain degree, but at the same time, because it'd be more Scorsese that's probably pushing them to push it. But
They'll push it hard, especially after winning.
yeah, and I feel like that's a movie that will probably put Scorsese in good standing to win his second directing award. Like he talking about like one of the great filmmakers of cinema who's only won one Oscar for directing The Departed. It's like, okay, this guy probably should have at least like three. So like it's like the movie again has to truly fail, I think, in order to not be not at least
To not show up
nominated.
next
Yeah.
year, yeah, for sure.
But then also Apple is going to have some controversy next year because they also have the Anton Fuqua movie with Will Smith. So, and that's supposed to also be a quote unquote Oscar contender. But I mean, other than Training Day, Anton Fuqua's movies have
No.
not been
I bet,
Oscar films.
have you guys watched Sniper? Is it Sniper? That's what I'm talking about with
Yeah,
Wahlberg.
yeah, Wahlberg, yeah.
Yeah.
Or Olympus
Whew.
Has Fallen.
Oh, I love
Gerard
Olympus Has
Butler was
Fallen.
robbed.
Thank you all for listening or watching. We really, really do appreciate it. We'll have a review out for Moon Knight, the first
Speaking
4
of Oscar
episodes.
season,
Hey, you guys can check that out very, very soon. So keep an eye out for that. Like I mentioned, Everything Everywhere All at Once should be available for you guys pretty much right now to listen to. And we'll be back next week with another episode 120, baby. Let's go. You can find more of my work around the internet, but mostly at untitledmoviepodcast.com. And you can follow me on all those social medias at Matt Rohrbeck.
still writing for Family Feud as well. And
I
you were
am.
on Kind of Funny. So will that
I
be available
was.
to watch?
Yeah,
anywhere?
so you guys can check out. I hopped on the Kind of Funny morning show today, which they do every Monday with Nick Scarpino, Snowbike Mike, Andy Cortez, Kevin Coelho, and we talked Oscars for a good hour or so. And there should be a VOD of that. It's not a podcast. It'll only be on YouTube. I don't know when it will post, but I believe it'll be on the Kind of Funny Plays YouTube channel, which is where they put up their VODs for their Twitch streams. And it should be titled Kind of Funny Morning Show talking about the Oscars. So that should be up pretty soon. And then I'll post it on our one-stop shop, which is of course Untitled_cast on Letterboxd. So
and your social media.
There.
I'm sure you'll post
Yeah,
it on
and
Twitter
Matt
and stuff
Rohrbeck.
like that.
Yeah,
Now,
for sure.
now, will there be a POD version of it from the early 2000s?
Boom.
Starring Andrew Garfield as the lead singer from POD,
would
which
that.
would be amazing. You can find more of my video reviews on rogerstv.com/cinemascene and on the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
There were also a lot of Ridley Scott disses throughout the night.
Yeah.
The Last Duel, G.I. Jane,
of all the
House
movies,
of Gucci.
Of all the movies to like poke fun at of like what people didn't see. Oh, excuse me. I don't know why people chose that one.
Your burp was an homage to Jason Momoa, right?
Oh yeah, he did burp. Yeah, that was that. All right. Bye everyone.